This is Michael Savage. This is Black Monday for sure. And I have to say some things today that I'm reluctant to say. I wasn't supposed to be on the air. I'm just out of anesthesia or whatever they gave me only by a few hours. I had a little procedure today, as I told you, and I wasn't going to work today and tomorrow. They advised me against it. So if I slip up or make mistakes today, you'll have to forgive me. But I got to tell you this. Looking at what I see has happened now, I'm calling today a financial 9/11. I'm also saying that Bush came in. Shortly thereafter, there was a 9/11. We were attacked physically by terrorists on Wall Street and in Washington, D.C., at the Pentagon. And it looks like as he leaves, he's giving us a financial meltdown. Now you say, why is Bush responsible? I'll get to that. But make no mistake about it, he's the President of the United States of America. George Bush permitted this to happen by deregulating Wall Street and letting the pirates go crazy. I think it was Karl Marx who said, if you give capitalists enough rope, eventually they will hang themselves by their own petard. Bush broke all regulatory policy, and as a result, we have this financial 9/11 today. You know, every time there's an accident in the world, whether it's a train crash or a plane crash, they usually look at pilot error. If it's not George Bush, who is it? Well, then it must be the head Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Paulson, who caused or allowed this financial 9/11 to happen, in my opinion. Why do I say that? There's a lead article today from England, and only from England, in the Times UK, that says the last men standing, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. Last men standing. Are you aware of the fact that our Treasury Secretary was former CEO of Goldman Sachs? How many months have I been warning you by what I've seen going on in this country? How many months have I said to you, this is a country of Goldman Sachs, by Goldman Sachs, and for Goldman Sachs? And you thought I was kidding. Well, I'm as kidding as much as Jonathan Swift was kidding in Gulliver's Travels. This is a country of Goldman Sachs, by Goldman Sachs, and for Goldman Sachs. I invite you to read the following articles, which I cannot summarize. They're all linked up on michaelsavage.com, and then I'm going to ask you 5 questions. The first headline says, Dow falls 500 points in worst day since 2001. That is why I'm calling today a financial 9/11. I'm also saying Bush came in on a 9/11 and is going out on a 9/15, but I'm reluctant to say that because he's not finished yet. 3 months ago, I said to you that George Bush has not yet done all the damage he's going to do to this country. And guess what? He's got 3 big months left. The next article says, Ladies' man McCain is a player in New York. Then Lehman CEO hubris contributed to the meltdown. That's correct. You got to understand something. There are men involved in this meltdown. Many of you don't understand that what has just happened is worse than what happened in 1929. Why do I say such a rash thing? It's worse than what happened in 1929. Well, if you don't believe me, then why don't you listen to the opening speech that we played by Alan Greenspan, who said the U.S. is in a once-in-a-century financial crisis. So if we're in a once-in-a-century financial crisis, meaning greater than anything that's happened in the last 100 years, well, that takes us back to 1908. So it's greater than 1929. So if it's greater than 1929, why are we not hearing about it? So that leads me to another couple of questions here on the Savage Nation. And again, I have to ask your indulgence. And I'm not milking you for sympathy. Nobody I know would come out of even elective surgery on the medication I was on, where I had to be driven home, get up out of bed 30 minutes ago and do this show. But I have to do this show because I know the people. I've turned every channel on. I was watching CNBC since 4 o'clock in the morning, and they do a stupendous job. But there's one problem with CNBC. They will not name names. It's all a cozy old girls club. They will not call for an investigation because they know if they do, they would wind up losing their access to leaders on Wall Street. But make no mistake about it, it is the leaders of Wall Street, at least some of them, who must immediately be arrested and indicted and investigated. They must be. Why is nobody else in America but Michael Savage demanding a governmental investigation of what has happened on Wall Street. The question to you is, who should be indicted and tried for this debacle? Do you agree with Bush that you should be satisfied with Paulson and Bernanke? Now I'm going to remind you of something else. After Osama bin Laden attacked us on 9/11/2001, he said he did so because he attempted to destroy our economy, so he hit Wall Street. He wanted to hit our economy. What Osama bin Laden dreamed of doing in 2001 has now been done in 2008 by homegrown terrorists. But they didn't do it to destroy this country. Make no mistake about it. The greedy pirates of Wall Street did it strictly for serve their own purposes. The pirates of Wall Street who did this to this country, and make no mistake about it, you're not going to know the full ramifications for a long while. The pirates of Wall Street who did this to us have done more damage than Osama bin Laden did to our financial systems. Who did it? Why no calls for an investigation on any channel? What must we the people do to take our country back from these thieves? Why were limits on speculation withdrawn by George Bush in 2004? They were allowed to speculate at a number of 15-1 in certain financial instruments. Bush broke that off and said, now go to anything you want. They went to 70-1, the gangsters. Who benefited from this? Why no answers on why Paulson is not forced to step aside because of appearances of conflicts of interest? Let me repeat that again. I am not accusing Henry Paulson of a conflict of interest, but I will ask this question. If the Secretary of the Treasury is the former CEO of the last man standing on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs, do you not think that presents itself as a conflict of interest? Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley face questions, says the article. As the only two independent Wall Street brokerages standing, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley will face a barrage of questions at their third quarter announcements this week. Some experts believe that in a climate of panic in which clients, trading partners, and lenders are becoming increasingly wary of brokerages, it is only a matter of time before the two groups melt down or are snapped up. That's very interesting. Meltdown or snapped up. Well, I can't address what Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are going to do, but I do know this. After Bear Stearns was broken up and destroyed by the pirates of Wall Street, and make no mistake about it, experts said that Bear Stearns was destroyed by Wall Street with a little help from their friends in government. After that happened, there were calls and grumblings about Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, but that's been brushed aside. What about Chris Cox, the great genius of the Republican machine? Chris Cox, who was put in as the head of the SEC. Why is he invisible? If you put a sheriff in charge of a town, a lawless town like Dodge City, and you bring in Wyatt Earp, and Dodge City continues to shoot, and there's shooting and killing in Dodge City, what you do is you fire Wyatt Earp. Well, Chris Cox was the Wyatt Earp brought in to control the pistoleros of Wall Street. Instead, Chris Cox has gone and hid inside a bedroom somewhere, upstairs in a saloon, to continue the Western theme. I'll take your calls because I cannot believe that from 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock this morning, I have turned on show after show after show, radio show, TV show, and I hear morons talking about baseball games yesterday. I hear idiots in talk radio who should get up the next day and say, I quit because I'm too stupid to cover what's going on in the world. I apologize for wasting the people's time. They should get up and say, I apologize for wasting gullible, foolish people's time by talking about utter rubbish. There is no other story. This is Black Monday. Bush brought in 9/11 in the sense that when he entered politics, we had 9/11 shortly thereafter. And now as he's going out the door, we have 9/15. So today's show is called From 9/11 to 9/15, a financial 9/11. It's a whodunit. It's a mystery story. So again, America, savage America, wake up, because this didn't happen by accident. This did not happen